I've been a truck driver for 27 years, and this is what it cost me. My name is Ray. I am 53 years old. I have been driving a Class A semi-truck for 27 years, and I am sitting right now in the cab of my Freightliner Cascadia in a Pilot truck stop parking lot off exit 218 on I-40, just outside Amarillo, Texas, and I am going to tell you tonight what this job took from me, not what it gave me. Everybody talks about what trucking gives you, the money, the freedom, the open road. Tonight I'm going to talk about the invoice, the one they don't show you at the CDL school, the one they don't print on the recruitment poster, the one you don't read until you're 53 years old and parked in a dark lot, and the only person who has spoken to you today is a cashier at a fuel desk who said, "Pump 7," without looking up from her phone. This job cost me everything. I need to say that up front so you understand I am not being dramatic. I am being specific. I had a wife. I had a daughter. I had a house. I had a body that worked. I had friendships that didn't require a cell tower. I had a version of myself that could sit in a room with people and not feel like a stranger in it. All of it is gone. Not because of a wreck, not because of a single bad decision, because of 27 years of small absences that added up to a permanent one. Stay with me tonight. Subscribe. Not for the algorithm, so the next guy sitting in a dark cab doing the math on what this life has cost him knows someone else already counted the receipts. Leave a comment, even a number. The number of years you've been out here. That's enough. I got my CDL on a Tuesday in March of 1999 at the Oklahoma Department of Public Safety office on North Classen Boulevard in Oklahoma City. I was 26. I had a wife named Karen who was 7 months pregnant with our daughter Bree. I had a 2-bedroom apartment in Broken Arrow where the hot water lasted 9 minutes. I was working at a brake parts warehouse in Tulsa, loading pallets onto trucks for $11.75 an hour. And a guy on the dock named Curtis told me one afternoon over gas station burritos that his cousin was clearing $1,100 a week driving OTR out of Dallas. $1,100 a week. I was making $470 before taxes. Karen was due in 8 weeks. The math was simple. The math is always simple when you are 26 and broke, and a man on a tailgate is telling you there is a better life on the other side of a 3-week course and a driving test. I passed on the first try. The examiner shook my hand and said, "Welcome to the open road." I drove home to Broken Arrow that night and told Karen I was going to be a truck driver, and she could quit her second job at the dry cleaner, and we were going to be fine. She stood in the kitchen doorway with her hand on her stomach, and she said, "How much will you be gone?" I said, "A few days at a time, maybe a week." I was lying. I did not know I was lying. I was repeating what the recruiter had told me, which was a version of what the recruiter had been trained to tell every 26-year-old standing in his office with a new CDL and a pregnant wife, and the specific desperation of a man who has been loading other people's freight for $11.75 an hour. The truth is that in my first year, I was gone 280 days. 280 days out of 365. That is not a few days at a time. That is a marriage conducted through a flip phone with a signal that dropped every time I hit a valley in West Virginia or a dead zone in rural Nebraska. That is a pregnancy I watched through updates. That is a birth I heard through a phone pressed against my ear on the shoulder of I-44 outside Joplin, Missouri, while a Walmart truck passed me doing 68. My daughter Brianna was born on November 3rd, 1999, at 4:47 in the afternoon. I was 340 miles away. I heard Karen scream, and then I heard a nurse say something I could not make out, and then I heard a sound that I will carry for the rest of my life, which was my daughter's first cry coming through a cell phone speaker on the side of a highway in Missouri, while the trailer behind me rattled in the draft of passing traffic. I pulled into the hospital parking lot in Tulsa at 11:30 that night. Karen was asleep. Bree was in a clear plastic bassinet next to the bed. She was 7 hours old. I picked her up and I held her in the chair by the window, and I promised her I would be there. I made that promise the way every trucker makes that promise, out loud, in a quiet room, with the full intention of keeping it and the complete inability to do so. That was the first cost. Not the biggest one, just the first one. The second cost was slower. It happened over years, not in a single night. It was the cost of becoming a stranger in your own house. When you drive OTR, you develop two lives. There is the cab life and there is the home life. The cab life is routine. You know the seat, you know the mirrors, you know the sound the engine makes at 1400 RPM, and the way the trailer pulls to the right when it is loaded heavy on the passenger side. The cab life is predictable. It is controlled. It is yours. The home life is the opposite. The home life changes while you are gone. Karen rearranges the kitchen and you open the wrong drawer for a fork. Bree learns a new word and uses it on Tuesday. And by the time you get home on Friday, she has moved on to a different word and you missed the one in between. The neighbor paints his fence. The grocery store changes its layout. The world you left 6 days ago is not the same world you come back to. And after enough returns, you stop feeling like you are coming home. You start feeling like you are visiting. I remember the exact moment I knew I had become a visitor. Bree was 4 years old. I had been on a 5-day run to Atlanta and back. I pulled into the apartment complex in Broken Arrow on a Thursday evening, and I walked through the front door, and Bri was sitting on the living room floor with a coloring book. And she looked up at me and she said, "Mommy, the truck man is here." The truck man. My daughter called me the truck man. She was not being cruel. She was 4 years old. She was describing what she saw, which was a large man in a high-vis vest and steel-toed boots, who appeared in the living room every few days and then disappeared again. She did not call her pediatrician daddy. She did not call the mailman daddy. She called them what they were, people who showed up and left. And that is what I was. Karen corrected her. She said, "That's daddy, baby." And Bri looked at me again with the specific confusion of a child who is being told that a word she has been using correctly is wrong. She said, "Oh," and she went back to her coloring book. I stood in the doorway of my own living room holding a duffel bag that smelled like diesel and truck stop soap, and I understood for the first time that this job was not just taking my time. It was taking my identity. I was not Ray to my daughter. I was a man who came and went. I was a recurring guest in my own family. That night, Karen and I sat on the back steps of the apartment after Bri was asleep. And Karen told me something I have replayed in this cab more than any song on any radio station in 27 years. She said, "Ray, I'm not mad. I'm just lonely. And I don't know how to be lonely in a marriage and still call it a marriage." She was 27. She had a 4-year-old. She had a husband she saw 80 days a year. She had learned to fix the garbage disposal herself, to change the oil in her Civic herself, to handle Bree's ear infections at 2 a.m. herself, to sit at a parent-teacher conference by herself, to eat dinner alone at a table set for two with an empty chair across from her that stayed empty so often it stopped looking empty and started looking normal. I told her I would cut back. I told her I would switch to regional routes. I told her shorter runs, more home time. Things were going to change. And I meant it, every word. The way I had meant it the last time I said it, and the time before that, and the time before that. But here is the thing about trucking that nobody says out loud. The money is in the miles. Shorter runs mean fewer miles. Fewer miles mean smaller checks. Smaller checks mean the apartment in Broken Arrow goes from tight to impossible. And impossible when you have a 4-year-old and a wife who already works 2 jobs and a landlord who has already taped 1 eviction notice to your door. Impossible is not an option. So I kept driving. I took the long hauls. I took the holiday loads that paid double because nobody else wanted to spend Thanksgiving in a truck stop in Barstow, California, eating turkey from a plastic container with a spork. I took every mile they offered me because every mile was $1, and every dollar was proof that I was providing, that I was a good father, that the absence had a purpose. That is the lie the industry sells you, not the open road, not the freedom. The lie is that absence is provision. The lie is that the money you send home is the same thing as being home. The lie is that a child will understand, when she is old enough, that the reason her father missed her school play was because he was carrying 42,000 pounds of frozen chicken from Tyson's plant in Springdale, Arkansas, to a distribution center in Raleigh, North Carolina, and the delivery window was 6 a.m., and the play was at 7 p.m., and the math did not work. The math never works. Not the real math. The real math is not dollars and miles. The real math is hours. And the hours say that I have spent approximately 83,000 83,000 hours behind this wheel in 27 years. 83,000 hours. That is 9.5 years of continuous, uninterrupted driving. And for every one of those 83,000 hours, I was not somewhere else. I was not at a dinner table. I was not at a birthday party. I was not on a couch watching a movie with my arm around someone. I was here, in this seat, looking through this glass. Karen left in 2008. I say left because that is the word, but it is not accurate. Karen did not leave. Karen was already alone. The divorce just made it official. She sat me down at the kitchen table on a Sunday morning, the first Sunday I had been home in 3 weeks, and she held up a yellow legal pad. She had written down every event I had missed in the previous 3 years. Birthdays, school plays, doctor appointments, soccer games, parent-teacher nights, Thanksgiving, Christmas morning, Easter, Bree's first day of 2nd grade, a Tuesday in April when Bree fell off her bike and needed 4 stitches above her left eyebrow, and Karen drove her to the ER alone and held her hand in the waiting room alone and signed the consent form alone. The list was 2 pages, front and back, in Karen's handwriting, which was small and neat and careful, the same handwriting she used for the grocery list she taped to the fridge. She did not yell. She did not cry. She held up the pad and she said, "Ray, Bree asked me last week if you still live here." The 4th cost was the holidays. I want to talk about this because nobody who has not lived it understands what it means to spend Christmas in a truck stop. Thanksgiving 2011. I was parked at a Love's in Lordsburg, New Mexico, population 2,500. The truck stop had put up a small fake tree next to the ATM in the travel center. There was a handwritten sign on the hot food counter that said, "Happy Thanksgiving, turkey plate, $8.99. The turkey plate was sliced deli turkey on a styrofoam tray with instant mashed potatoes and canned cranberry sauce, the kind that comes out of the can in the shape of the can. I bought one. I sat in my cab. I ate it with a plastic fork. Through the windshield I could see the other trucks, maybe 30 of them, lined up in rows with their running lights on. And I knew that in at least half of those cabs, there was another man doing exactly what I was doing, eating a turkey plate alone, trying not to call home because calling home on Thanksgiving when you are not home on Thanksgiving is its own kind of punishment. I called anyway. Bree answered. She was 12. I could hear Karen's family in the background, plates clinking, someone laughing, a football game on a television. Bree said, "Hi, Dad. Happy Thanksgiving. When are you coming home?" I said Friday. She said, "Okay. Mom made the rolls you like." And then she handed the phone to Karen, and Karen said, "We miss you, Ray. Drive safe." And I said, "I will." And we hung up. The call lasted 90 seconds. I sat in the cab and I ate the rest of the turkey plate, and I understood that there was a chair at that table in Broken Arrow that was empty, and that the people sitting around it had learned how to have Thanksgiving without looking at it. Christmas was worse. Christmas was always worse because Christmas has a morning, and the morning is for children, and children remember who was there when they came down the stairs. I missed 11 Christmases. 11. A rest area in Virginia, a Petro in Joplin, a TA in Elko, Nevada, a pilot in Effingham, Illinois. Each one the same. Each one a parking lot and a bunk and a phone call that started with "Merry Christmas, baby," and ended with the specific silence of a child who has opened her presents and is trying to describe them to a man who is not in the room. Bree stopped describing the presents around age 11. She would just say, "I got some good stuff. Thanks for the gift card, Dad." The gift card, because that is what you send when you are 800 miles away and the FedEx deadline is passed, and you do not know what your daughter wants because you have not been in her room in 3 weeks, and you do not know what is on her walls anymore, or what music she listens to, or what size shoe she wears. You send a gift card. You send a number. And the number is supposed to stand in for the thing it cannot replace, which is a father sitting on the living room floor at 7 a.m. watching his daughter tear open wrapping paper. The 5th cost is the one I am only now beginning to understand, 27 years in. It is the cost of silence itself, not the silence of the cab, the silence of the man inside it. When you spend 11 hours a day alone, you stop being good at people. You do not notice it at first, but the skills rust. The ability to hold a conversation that is not about freight rates or fuel prices. The ability to sit in a restaurant across from someone and not check your phone, because the phone has been your only companion for 6 days, and your hands reach for it the way they reach for the gear shift, automatically, without thinking. The ability to hug someone without feeling like your body has forgotten the shape of another person. I went on a date in 2019. A woman named Denise I met through a driver's dating app, which is a thing that exists because enough of us are lonely enough to need one. She was a dental hygienist in Amarillo. We met at a Chili's. She was kind. She laughed easily. And I sat across from her, and I realized after 20 minutes that I had not had a face-to-face conversation with a woman who was not a cashier or a scale operator in over 4 months. I had forgotten the rhythm of it, when to talk, when to listen, when to laugh. I kept leaving pauses that were too long because in the cab, the pauses are as long as you want them to be. Nobody is waiting for you to finish your sentence. Denise said at the end of the dinner, "You seem like a really good guy, Ray, but it feels like you're somewhere else." She was right. I was somewhere else. I was in the cab. Even when I am not in the cab, I am in the cab. The cab is the room I have lived in for so long that every other room feels temporary. Bree is 27 now. She lives in Tulsa. She has a son named Eli, who is 3 years old. I have met my grandson 4 times. 4 times in 3 years. I could tell you the date and location of each one the way I can tell you the BOL number on a load sheet. December 23rd, 2023, Karen's house, 45 minutes. March 8th, 2024, a Cracker Barrel off Highway 75, an hour and 10 minutes. July 4th, 2024, a park in Broken Arrow, 2 hours. October something, 2025, a FaceTime call, 11 minutes. My grandson Eli knows my face from a phone screen. He calls me Papa's phone because that is how he has learned to identify me. Not Papa, Papa's phone. I am a rectangle to my grandson. Bree is kind to me. She texts me back. She sends pictures. She does not owe me more than that, and she gives me more than that, and I am grateful. But there is a distance between us that is not miles. It is the accumulation of 27 years of miles. It is the residue of every time she waved at my truck from the porch in Broken Arrow, and I watched her get smaller in the side mirror until she disappeared. She waved at me once when she was 4 in a yellow rain jacket. Fingers together, straight up and down, the way children wave before they learn to be casual about goodbye. That image lives in my windshield. It has lived there for 23 years. I see it every morning when the sun comes through the glass, and for a half second before my eyes adjust, the light looks like a yellow jacket. Karen remarried in 2015. A man named Todd who works at a Honda dealership in Tulsa and is home every night by 6. He was at Bree's wedding. He walked her down the aisle. Not me, Todd. Because Todd had been there for the science fairs and the graduations and the prom photos and the move-in day at college and the ordinary Tuesdays that are the actual material a father is made of. I was on I-10 somewhere. I was always on I-10 somewhere. I do not hate Todd. I am glad he exists. He is the version of a man that Karen deserved and that Bree needed, and that I could not be from this seat. He is proof that the problem was never me. The problem was the seat. I want to say something to every man who is in this cab right now. Not this specific cab, this life, this seat, this silence. They told us the sacrifice was temporary. They told us at the CDL school and at the orientation and at the first dispatch call. Put in your years, stack your money, get home eventually. And we believed it because we needed to believe it, because the alternative was admitting that we were trading something irreplaceable for something countable. You cannot buy back a first word. You cannot buy back a school play. You cannot buy back the sound your daughter makes when she falls off a bike, and the first word out of her mouth is mommy, because mommy is the one who is always there, and daddy is the truck man who shows up on Thursdays. I have driven 3.6 million miles. I have been to 48 states. I have watched the sun rise over the Rockies and set over the Pacific, and I have driven through Appalachian fog so thick I couldn't see my own hood. I have seen beautiful things from this seat, and I would trade every single one of them for one ordinary Tuesday in Broken Arrow in 2006, sitting on the floor next to a 7-year-old girl with a coloring book who calls me Daddy instead of the truck man. That is what it cost me. If you are out here tonight, parked somewhere with the engine ticking and the cab getting cold, and the phone sitting on the dash with a message you haven't sent because you don't know what to say anymore, send it. Send the message. Call the kid. Call the woman. Call whoever it is you have been meaning to call for the last 200 miles, while the silence talked you out of it. The silence will always talk you out of it. That is what the silence does. That is what 27 years taught me. My name is Ray. I am parked at a pilot outside Amarillo. The lot is full. The cab is dark. And I just told you the price of 3.6 million miles. It was everything. It cost me everything.